So, um, I want to start today with a feeling that I think most of us secretly relate to, even if we're logically no better.
Okay. I am intrigued.
It's this myth of the lone wolf. You know, the image of the genius billionaire or the brilliant inventor just sitting alone in a room,
Right.
thinking really hard, and then suddenly, boom, they come up with the idea that changes the world.
Oh, yeah. It's a very romantic image. It's basically Hollywood's favorite trope for any biopic,
Exactly.
but it is also, historically and statistically speaking, completely wrong.
Completely wrong. And today, we're going to debunk it using one of the most famous manuals on success ever written.
We are indeed.
We're opening up Napoleon Hill's 1938 classic Think and Grow Rich. But we aren't skimming the whole book today. We are doing a dedicated deep dive into Chapter 10.
Which is really the pivot point of the entire book. It's where Hill introduces this concept of the mastermind.
And before anyone rolls their eyes, because I know how that sounds, no, we aren't talking about a supervillain plot.
Right, no secret societies and comic books here.
Yeah, we are talking about a very specific psychological and economic principle.
A very grounded one, actually.
So the mission for this deep dive is to decode what Hill actually means by the mastermind, why he claims it's the only way to get real power.
And how, according to his research, you can actually build one of these alliances to bridge that gap between being just a dreamer and a doer.
So we have to start with that word I just used, power, because Hill uses it in a very, very specific way.
He does. He doesn't mean physical strength, and he definitely doesn't mean, like, political office.
Right. He actually starts the chapter by claiming that plans are inert and useless without power, which, as someone who loves making detailed to-do lists,
Bit of a slap in the face.
yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It's like he's saying you can have the best five-year plan in the world, the glossiest document, but it's just paper unless you have power.
Right, it's a car without an engine.
Exactly. So how does he actually define power?
He defines it as organized and intelligently directed knowledge. That's the key phrase right there.
Organized knowledge.
Yeah, power isn't just knowing a bunch of things. It's knowledge that is structured into a definite plan of action.
So just collecting trivia isn't power.
Exactly. Having access to Wikipedia isn't power, it's potential. It only becomes power when it's organized and directed toward an end goal.
Okay, so if power is just organized knowledge, where does that actual knowledge come from? He'll list the three sources, right?
He does to kind of set the stage. And the first two are standard. I think they're pretty obvious to modern readers.
Right, accumulated experience.
Yep, accumulated experience. So libraries, schools, textbooks, basically everything humanity has already written down and classified.
And the second one is experiment and research.
Exactly. So science, gathering new facts, testing hypotheses, doing things when the accumulated experience isn't enough.
The stuff you learn in a college lecture or do in a lab. But then he lists this third source, and he places it at the very top of the hierarchy,
Infinite intelligence.
which, let's be honest, sounds a bit mystical.
It does sound mystical, and Hill leans into that throughout the text. He describes infinite intelligence as the source you contact through creative imagination.
Like a hunch.
Right, the flash of inspiration, that idea that just seems to drop into your head from nowhere.
But here's the problem, right? And this is the crux of the entire chapter.
No single individual has enough time or energy to gather all that knowledge alone.
Right, you essentially run out of bandwidth.
Exactly. If you want to create a massive fortune or build a huge company or drive real change, you will inevitably hit the ceiling of your own brain battery.
The single battery just runs out of juice.
You just cannot know enough or read enough or experience enough by yourself to convert that much knowledge into power.
So the lone wolf hits a wall. Every single time.
Every time. And this is exactly where the mastermind comes in.
I want to read Hill's definition verbatim because every single word seems chosen very carefully.
Go for it.
He says the mastermind is, quote, coordination of knowledge and effort in a spirit of harmony between two or more people for the attainment of a definite purpose.
It's a really dense definition, but if you unpack it, the formula is clear. Coordination, harmony, definite purpose.
So if you just have a group of really smart people in a room arguing or, just talking about the weather,
That is not a mastermind.
that's just a bad meeting.
Precisely. Hill actually splits the benefits of this alliance into two very distinct phases. There's the economic feature and the psychic feature.
Let's start with the economic one because I think that feels the most tangible to us today.
Yeah.
This is basically the whole work smarter, not harder argument, right?
In a way, yeah. The economic feature is all about practical leverage. It's the massive advantage you get by surrounding yourself with advice and counsel and cooperation.
So it's admitting I don't need to know everything. I just need to ally with the people who do.
Exactly. And the case study he uses for this is perfect. Andrew Carnegie.
Right. And for context, for anyone who doesn't know, Carnegie was a steel titan,
Mhm.
one of the richest men in modern history.
But Hill points out something about Carnegie that is genuinely funny when you think about it.
It's so ironic. Carnegie openly admitted he knew practically nothing about the technical side of the steel business,
Nothing at all. He wasn't a chemist. He wasn't an engineer. He couldn't go onto the factory floor and actually run the machines that made the steel.
which in today's startup world might get him roasted. We expect our founders to be these product geniuses who know every line of code.
True. But Carnegie's actual genius wasn't in steel. His genius was in the mastermind.
Right, he surrounded himself with a group.
A group of about 50 men. And they were the ones who knew the chemistry and the manufacturing and the marketing.
So his job wasn't to do the work.
No, his job was to keep that group of 50 men in perfect harmony, moving toward his definite purpose, which is dominating the steel industry.
So his power going all the way back to that definition of organized knowledge. It didn't come from his own brain. It came from the combined organized knowledge of those 50 men.
He was the conductor, not the violin player. And Hills argues that if you analyze any massive fortune in history, you will always find this principle.
The individual accumulates the money through the brains of others.
Always.
Okay, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
That's the practical economic side. It's highly efficient. But then chapter 10 takes a pretty sharp turn.
It does. It gets into the psychic phase.
Yeah, he starts talking about the psychic phase of the mastermind. And I'll be honest, this is where the book starts to feel less like a business manual and more like metaphysics.
It definitely shifts gears here. But this is the big aha moment for a lot of readers. Hill posits that the human brain isn't just a physical computer processing data.
He calls it a form of energy.
Right. He uses the analogy of an electric battery.
Oh, I love this analogy. He says a single battery provides a certain amount of energy. But if you connect a bank of batteries together, they provide significantly more power.
But here's the kicker. It's not just additive, it's exponential. He says, quote, "No two minds ever come together without thereby creating a third invisible, intangible force which may be likened to a third mind."
The third mind.
Yes. The idea is that when you and I are perfectly aligned, not just politely agreeing, but deeply harmonized on a specific purpose, we actually create a separate entity.
A third intelligence.
Exactly. And both of us can tap into it.
So it's essentially a 1 + 1 = 3 effect.
Correct. I mean, think about a time you were in a really deep conversation with a colleague or a partner. You're brainstorming, you're excited.
And suddenly you say something absolutely brilliant that you didn't even know you knew.
Oh, absolutely. It feels like the ideas are just being pulled out of you by the dynamic of the room.
Like you're suddenly much smarter than you actually are.
Hill would say that's because you aren't just using your own single battery anymore. You are actively drawing from this third mind that the group created. You're accessing a higher voltage.
And does he explain why this happens? Or is it just sort of presented as magic?
He links it to the ether. He suggests that thought is an actual vibration. And when multiple minds broadcast the exact same vibration that determined purpose, it amplifies the signal. And that amplified signal allows you to tune in to that infinite intelligence we mentioned earlier much more easily than you ever could alone.
So the mastermind is essentially a giant signal booster for your brain.
That is a great way to put it, a massive cognitive antenna.
Okay, so we have the theory. We want the economic leverage, so we don't have to know how to make the steel ourselves. And we want this psychic third mind booster.
Right.
But how do we actually build one? Because Hill doesn't just leave it as a neat philosophical idea. He references specific actionable steps, tying it back to his chapter on organized planning.
He does. He's very prescriptive here. There are 4 main requirements to getting this right. And I have to warn you, if you miss even one of these, the whole thing just falls apart.
All right, let's break them down. What is step 1?
Selection. You have to ally yourself with as many people as you need for your specific plans.
Specific being the key word there.
Very specific. Note that he doesn't say pick your best friends or pick people you like having a beer with. You need the minds that fill your specific knowledge gaps.
Right. So if I'm terrible at math, I don't need another creative writer in my mastermind just because we get along great.
Yeah.
I need an accountant.
Exactly. It has to be strategic. You are building a machine. You need the right parts.
Okay, so step 2 is compensation. And I feel like This is the one people screw up the most when they try to network today.
Oh, people get this wrong all the time.
What's the main mistake they make?
They think people will just help them because they're enthusiastic or because they have a cool idea. Hill is brutal about this. He says no intelligent person will either request or expect another to work without adequate compensation.
So you cannot just ask people to help you get rich for free.
Absolutely not. Now, it doesn't always have to be cold, hard cash. It could be shared glory or mutual connections or trading specific skills or equity in the business.
But there has to be a clear value exchange.
You have to have a crystal clear answer to the question, what is in it for them? If it's a one-way street, the battery simply does not charge.
That's a really good reality check. All right, step 3 is frequency.
You need to meet with the group at least twice a week, and more often if possible.
Twice a week. That seems like a huge time commitment for busy professionals.
It is a lot, but it's all about maintaining momentum. Hill says you need to maintain that connection until the plan is perfected.
So you can't just check in casually.
No, because if you only meet once a month, that psychic connection, that third mind, it dissipates. You're basically starting from cold every single time. You need constant, consistent contact to keep the energy high and the minds perfectly blended.
And that leads right into the 4th rule. And honestly, reading the source material, this feels like the one rule Hill is shouting from the rooftops.
Perfect harmony?
Yeah, he literally writes it in all caps in the text.
He does. He says, quote, "The mastermind principle cannot obtain where perfect harmony does not prevail."
Why is he so incredibly strict on this point? I mean, can't a group have a little healthy debate?
Healthy debate over tactics is fine, but interpersonal friction is fatal. Hill argues that the psychic phase, that third mind energy, is spiritual in nature.
So it's delicate.
Very. If there is jealousy in the room, if there is cynicism, hidden agendas, or even if members just secretly dislike each other personally, the connection snaps instantly.
So the super battery effect is just gone.
Instantly gone. I mean, you might still get some economic advice. Someone might still give you a good stock tip or a marketing strategy, but you will never unlock the psychic power. You won't get that third mind. It simply fails.
You know, that really explains why so many corporate dream teams or all-star sports teams fail so miserably.
It perfectly explains it.
You put 5 absolute superstars in a room, but if they all have massive egos and hate each other, you don't get a mastermind. You just get a room full of very expensive arguments.
Exactly. Hill says you have to check your plans with the group, let them critique you, and adopt the final plan as a joint creation.
Which requires a serious lack of ego.
A level of humility that a lot of very smart people really struggle with.
Okay, so selection, compensation, frequency, and perfect harmony. Those are the 4 actionable steps to build this.
That is the recipe.
And Hill backs all of this theory up with some pretty heavy-hitter historical examples. We already talked about Carnegie. But he also brings up Henry Ford.
Ford is such a fascinating case because unlike Carnegie, he wasn't just managing from the top down, but he started with absolutely nothing.
Right. No money, no formal education, no political influence.
Hill asks the reader directly, how did this guy overcome poverty and illiteracy to become the most powerful industrialist in America?
And the answer obviously isn't just that he worked really hard.
No. Hill argues that Ford's incredible power came directly from his alliances. He became close friends with Thomas Edison, Luther Burbank, Harvey Firestone.
Some of the greatest minds of the century.
Exactly. They went on these long camping trips together. They spent hours and hours just talking and debating. And Hill argues that by spending so much time in harmony with these giant minds, Ford literally absorbed their intelligence.
It's like osmosis.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
He upgraded the frequency of his own mind by literally plugging it into theirs.
It's the ultimate manifestation of that old saying, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
It is. But Hill says Ford literally added their brain power to his own sum total.
But then Hill gives us a contrasting example that I found really surprising. Someone who had no industrial titans in his circle, no money, and absolutely no military force. Mahatma Gandhi.
Yes, this part of the chapter really struck me too, because Hill straight up calls Gandhi's success a miracle.
Why a miracle specifically?
Because it completely defies the standard historical definition of power. Gandhi didn't use physical force. He didn't buy people's influence. He created a mastermind on a national scale.
Yeah.
He induced 200 million people to coordinate their minds and their bodies in a spirit of harmony for one definite purpose: independence for India.
I mean, getting 200 million people to agree on literally anything seems impossible.
Hill actually jokes about that. He writes, quote, If you doubt that is a miracle, try to induce any two people to cooperate in the spirit of harmony for any length of time.
That is painfully true. Just getting a family of 4 to agree on a restaurant for dinner is a struggle.
Exactly. But Gandhi did it with millions. He created a third mind so incredibly powerful that even the British Empire, with all of its guns and soldiers and global wealth, simply couldn't suppress it.
It's the ultimate proof that this psychic power isn't just a trick for making money in business.
Right. It's a fundamental law of human influence.
It effectively proves that coordinated mental power can override entrenched physical power.
Every single time.
Now, to put this in the broader context of the book, Hill actually lists the mastermind as just one of 10 mind stimuli.
Right. He spends a lot of time looking for things that, quote, key up the mind to high vibrations, things that basically get the engine revving.
And he lists some pretty interesting ones in there. The desire for sex expression is actually number 1 on his list.
It is. He also lists love, music, true friendship. These are all natural stimulants. They make the human mind work faster and more creatively.
But the mastermind, this harmonious alliance of 2 or more people, is listed as one of the most reliable and constructive stimuli for achieving specific goals, especially financial ones.
It is the absolute engine of business success.
And it connects back to the subconscious mind too, right? Which is a huge theme in the book.
It does. When you are in a highly functioning mastermind group and that emotional excitement is running high, you are effectively planting your desires and your plans much deeper into your own subconscious.
And Hill believes the subconscious is the direct link to infinite intelligence.
Exactly. So it all connects into this perfect loop. The mastermind excites the brain, which programs the subconscious, which taps into infinite intelligence, which then delivers the power to make your plans actually work.
It's a complete chain reaction.
That is the formula.
So before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something we touched on at the very beginning. The idea that this isn't just standard networking.
Right.
Because I think in the modern world, we hear the phrase mastermind, and we immediately picture some overpriced corporate coaching retreat where people just drink bad coffee and exchange business cards.
Yeah, that is an incredibly shallow version of what Hill is actually talking about. Real mastermind groups aren't just about swapping contacts or finding investors.
They are about blending minds.
Deeply blending minds. It's about a connection where you are vulnerable enough to let others rip your plans apart and committed enough to help them rebuild theirs.
It really requires checking your ego at the door.
Absolutely. Remember, harmony is the unbreakable rule. If you are in it purely for yourself, or if you secretly think you're the smartest person in the room, the psychic connection never forms.
You're just a single battery sitting next to other batteries on a desk. You aren't wired together.
That is a fantastic visual. You want to be wired into the circuit, not just sitting adjacent to it.
Precisely. And for you listening right now, the real takeaway here is to look hard at your current circle. Who are you actually planning your future with?
Is there genuine harmony in that group?
Are you meeting frequently enough to keep the momentum going? Because if not, you are leaving a massive amount of power on the table.
You're trying to push the car down the highway with the engine turned off.
Exactly. Now, there is one final thought I want to leave you with today. Something from the very end of Chapter 10 that is, frankly, a little mind-bending.
Oh yeah, this part is fascinating. Hill mentions his own personal experiments with the mastermind principle.
Yes. He explicitly references Dr. Rhine at Duke University, who was famous for studying extrasensory perception, or ESP.
Right. And Hill claims that he and his close associates discovered a method where by perfectly blending their 3 minds into one, they could find exact solutions to problems that were definitely outside of their own personal experience.
He calls it mental telepathy.
He does.
Yeah.
He suggests that when the harmony of the group is absolutely perfect, you aren't just thinking faster, you are literally tuning into outside sources of knowledge. Facts, ideas, solutions that you never read in a book or learned in school.
Like you are suddenly granted access to a universal library. It really raises a profound question. Are you struggling with a problem right now because it's genuinely impossible? Or are you struggling simply because you are trying to solve it using only your own isolated brain?
That is the ultimate question. Are you trying to act as a single AA battery in a world that requires an industrial generator?
Something to mull over this week. If you are feeling stuck on a plan, maybe the answer isn't to just sit in a room alone and think harder. Maybe the answer is to finally go find your group.
Connect the batteries.
Thanks for diving in with us.
It was a pleasure.